Please describe your book, Ashworth Hall.
Describe it?
Yeah.
It's a mystery set in a country house outside London in the autumn of 1890. It involves politicians having yet another attempt to preliminarily solve the Irish problem, and the guests are two Catholic gentlemen and their wives and two Protestant gentlemen, well, and the sister of one of them, and there have been threats against the life of the moderator, Roger Tribble, and Pitt is therefore called in as a guest because it is held in his sister-in-law's home, but it's ostensibly he's a guest, but actually he's there to try and provide some security so that these threats against Mr. Trebble's life do not come to fruition. Of course there is violence or we wouldn't have a murder mystery. And this sort of plot, if you like, is the hatred that people can feel, groups of people can feel against each other, as in Ireland and Northern Ireland, or in the Middle East, or in Bosnia, or Albania, or any number of other places, sometimes even within families, long-standing hatreds that can become a pattern of life, so that we no longer can even trace back to the original incidents that began them. But we have this hatred which has become a part of our identity, who we are.
One of our favorite series is your Monk Hester Latterly series. Can you describe them?
Monk is a detective who wakes up in some pain in what he first takes to be the workhouse, which is one of the worst places any Victorian can imagine, and he discovers then that it is a hospital and that he has been injured, but he has no memory of anything that has happened to him up to that point. He does not even recognize his own face in the looking glass, hence the name of the book, Face of a Stranger. And he has to begin to discover who he is at the same time as trying to solve the very violent and unpleasant beating to death of a Crimean War officer. And he solves the two problems, only partially who he is, but the two riddles come together towards the end of the story.
How do you come up with these ideas for these stories?
Well, with Monk, I wanted to write the story of a man who had to discover himself from the outside, not discovering bit by bit what he had done, but not knowing why, because he has no recollection of it. Because when we judge others, we very frequently judge their actions without knowing why they have done whatever they have done. We only see the result.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what he sees with himself. Whereas usually, when we have a memory, we know why we did whatever. And therefore we know all the mitigating circumstances. And ultimately he will come to judge others with the same compassion that he would like to have used towards himself. At least that's the idea behind it, which is, I think, what you've asked me.
Yeah.
And the main woman in the story, Hester Latterly, has been out nursing in the Crimea with Florence Nightingale. Therefore she has some rather more liberated and forceful ideas than she would have had she remained at home.
Oh, that's great. And your stories are usually about challenging issues, such as the Irish problem, and
Well,
searches for difficult
it's
truths.
not just the Irish problem, it's the problem of deep-grained hatreds.
Okay.
Whether it's that or anything else. I mean, sometimes you can get them in families. You know, family feuds that have gone on for generations. We hate great-uncle so-and-so. We don't remember why, but yesterday they did that, the day before we did that, and the day before that they did so-and-so.
Yeah. Have you experienced any of this in your family or in violence?
Not in violence, no, but we do have one or two deep-rooted dislikes within the family a generation or two back. I mean, not to feuds, but yes, I suppose there's always something. All families have got their peculiarities, their dislikes that we grow up with.
Yes. When did you first become interested in Florence Nightingale?
Only when I started, the story of Monk had to be set at the time it was, for reasons which, if I explain, nobody would want to go and read the book.
Oh.
Well, believe me, it had to be then, for good reason. It had to be just after a war in which we lost a great many people. And the Crimean War seemed to be a good one. And I wanted to have a heroine who had spirit and fire and was able to express her opinions fairly forcibly and would have some strong opinions. And that seemed a very good way to have somebody do this naturally without being a complete anachronism, which would spoil the story. But if you had gone from being a fairly gently brought up woman, albeit with courage and intelligence, and you had experienced the appalling conditions of the Crimean War and had to rise to meet the most terrible challenges of the dead, the dying, the seriously injured, the dreadful conditions, the incompetence, the tragedy, and the heroism. It would stretch you to the nth degree of what you were able to learn and to find within yourself. And you would never again fit into polite society in the same way that you could have before. You'd learned what you could do. I mean, a woman who's amputated limbs on the battlefield is not going to swap polite gossip over the tea tray in the same way as a woman who's never been out of her own backyard.
How did you become a writer?
By writing. That's the only way you ever become a writer. Just do it. Keep on doing it. And never give up. And one day, 1 year, 1 decade, if you're lucky, somebody will accept something you've written.
Is that the recommendation you'd give to aspiring writers?
Yes, the only way to learn how to write is to do it. I mean, you can take lessons, you can be taught, you can have a great deal of instruction, and it can be very helpful, but it still doesn't work if you don't actually do it. I didn't get a great deal of instruction. Maybe I'd been achieved something faster if I had done. But all the instruction in the world isn't going to get you there if you don't actually, in my case, pick up a pen. In most people's cases, I suppose, sit down at the machine.
Oh.
I like to work with a pen, but that's just me. I'm eccentric.
Oh. How did you choose Victorian England?
I didn't. I wrote about various other periods of time and other countries, straight stories, not mysteries, and I didn't get them published. And when I finally wrote a mystery set in Victorian England, that was accepted. And believe me, yes is magic. So I stayed with that because I didn't have anything contracted in advance. So I wrote the next one, broadly speaking, on a similar pattern as I could to the first one, in hopes that they would take that as well, and they did. And with the third and fourth, etc., up to the 11th. Then I had a different publisher and was contracted in advance, but I'd more or less set the mold for what I was doing by then.
That's wonderful. What's a typical day like for you?
I get up at about 8. I really have to start getting up a little earlier. And dress, walk the dog, have breakfast, start work at about 9, which is when my secretary arrives, work through to 1, take about 25 minutes off for lunch, go back, work through to about 5, stop and do the numbers crossword, which I like, have supper about 6. Sometimes I watch television, sometimes I don't, depending on what's on. Sometimes I'll go back to work, sometimes I won't. Usually go to bed about 10, have a bath. I can very often get a good hour, hour and a half after that, when it's dark and the rest of the world's gone away and my concentration is better, and then go to sleep about midnight, and the next day, if you like.
Oh.
That's Monday through Saturday. Sunday, I do not work.
Okay. Do you have another project coming up?
Well, I'm always working on something. The month for the autumn, October, is The Silent Cry, which is done, of course. The Pitt for next spring is Brunswick Gardens, which is done. And the month for the autumn after that is Pointed Sepulchres, and that's done. And I'm at present, what I will be when I go back home, quarter of the way through something which, I don't know what to call it. Fantasy isn't really the right word, but it's a book I care about a great deal. Maybe it's fantasy, maybe it's magical reality, maybe it's just a straight novel, I'm not quite sure. I mean, it's not easy to categorize.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, back end of this year, I'm going to do a mystery set during the French Revolution, which I've got planned down to the nth detail. Then I go back and do another Pitt, and then a monk, and so forth.
Absolutely. Do you have anything you'd like to say to the viewing audience?
No, except thank you for listening, if there have been.
I want to thank you for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you.